Congratulations! You have a job talk or teaching demo coming up. That's a huge deal. Wait, you have a job talk or teaching demo coming up. That's a huge deal. What do you do? How do you create an effective job talk or teaching demo? Well, you do it by watching this video because today you're going to learn some strategies to make an effective and engaging job talk or teaching demo. Dr. Karen Kelsky of The Professor is In said, "The job talk is the highlight of the visit. You cannot bomb this and still get the job. You need to be a master of this format." So yeah, no pressure, right? And I started with that quote, not just to scare you, but to demonstrate how important your job talk or teaching demo really is. And I also wanted to let you know that I know that I take this seriously, and I've helped academics with their job talks before. And I wanted to make this video to help you. So splash some water on your face, do a couple jumping jacks, get some coffee, because this is a long video. I'm sharing a lot of information in this video because I actually care about your success, and I want you to do a really good job with this really important presentation. Job talks are scary and hard, and I don't want you to feel completely lost and unsure about how to do this. So buckle up, settle in, and watch this video all the way until the end, because every single tip I share in this video is going to work together to make sure that you give an awesome job talk or teaching demo. Before I get started, just in case you're new to my channel, I'm Dr. Echo, and I help academic scientists, researchers, evaluators, and similar professionals create engaging presentations. So if you haven't yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the little bell so that you get notified for my new videos, which I do every single week. Okay, so we have a lot to cover today. This is a pretty comprehensive intro to job talks and teaching demos. We're going to start with workflow and preparation, and then we'll move into your actual slides, your slide deck, and then we're going to end with tips for the actual presentation, when you're actually there. So sound good? All right, let's start with the workflow and preparation. The first thing you're going to need is information from wherever you're going to do your job talk or teaching demo. You need to know things like, are you actually doing a separate research talk and a teaching demo? Are you only doing one? Is it the research talk? Is it the teaching demo? So find that out. If they don't tell you, ask. You also want to know, how long do you have for the job talk or the teaching demo, and how much time you are expected to leave for the Q&A. Again, hopefully they're telling you this, but just in case they aren't, it's something to ask about. You also want to try to find out as much as you can the tech setup of where you're going to be giving your job talk or teaching demo. So what size is the projector? Is it a widescreen? Is it a 4x3? Should you bring your own laptop? Do they expect you to use theirs? That kind of stuff, because it's going to impact how you design your slides. And a lot of clients ask me about handouts and whether they should make handouts. And I often lean towards kinda, not really. We're actually going to talk about this in the last section, but now would be a good time just to ask to find out if they are expected. These are things that are going to be helpful to know very early on before you really work on your slides. And I want to hear from you, especially if you're on a search committee, maybe you've done a job talk and maybe you're watching this video to see if it's worth sharing with others who are in this process, which I hope so. But yeah, if that's you, then help us out on here. What other questions should people ask early on in this process when they're invited for a campus visit? What should they ask so that they can better prepare their slides and just for the actual visit itself? And I think a lot of people are nervous about bothering the search chair or whoever is coordinating this. So if you have tips on how to ask and how to frame that question, that would be extra fabulous. Okay, so once you have the answers to those questions, it's time to get going. And the most important thing here is that you have to start early. It is really important to do this. Everyone's habit of procrastinating on their presentations is really going to set you up to fail here. Your job talk will not demonstrate your ability to be a professional, a colleague, someone who is good at communicating if it's a hot mess. And if you procrastinate and you're rushing it, it's going to be a hot mess. So how early? Ideally, you're going to start about 8 weeks before your job talk. And most people don't actually have 8 weeks notice for their job talk or teaching demo. So what I'm saying here is, yes, go ahead and start working on it before you actually have one on your calendar, before you get that campus visit invite. You can get a rough draft going. You can figure out what data you want to share and start working on those data visualizations, pick out your icons, get your sections ready. There's a lot of things you can do before you actually have the invite. And then you should start working on your final slides the day after you are invited, because the day you get invited is obviously the day for celebrating, because the fact that you got a campus visit invite is amazing. And the day after, though, is when you really need to get serious and you need to start working on those final slides, especially because you're going to have less than 8 weeks, at least in most cases. So don't wait. This is probably going to be one of the most important presentations of your career, so you really cannot procrastinate. And I have another video about that 8-week time frame. It has a checklist and lots of ideas to help you stop your procrastination, so be sure to check that out. And you can always condense that 8-week time frame, but in that video and in that checklist, I still at least explain a good workflow in terms of what to do first, what to do second, kind of what order to go in things, so that working on your presentation is the most efficient and least stressful as possible. That video comes out soon, and I will update the description once that video is published. Another thing to plan on doing is writing a script and practicing your job talk. Yes, you need a script. It will make your job talk better. It will make your teaching demo better, and it'll just make you more confident, which means that you will deliver it in a more impactful way. And I'm not going to talk about that a lot here because that's another video that I'm about to publish. I have an entire video on how to script and practice your presentations. So this is just a reminder to hit that big shiny red subscribe button and the bell so you get notified when these next 2 videos come out, because they are going to help you with your job talk and teaching demo. And in the meantime, I do have a blog post version of this scripting and practicing information, so I'll include that link until the video is out. Now, while you're scripting and practicing your job talk and teaching demo, another thing you need to do in this stage is to remember the Q&A. You want to make sure that you have the right amount of content in your talk and that you leave the right amount of time for that Q&A. Most job talks are about 60 minutes, and you'll want to leave about 10 to 15 minutes for the Q&A. I recommend that you plan on 15 minutes because they're going to want to see how you handle the Q&A session. So you don't want to cheat them of that opportunity. Basically, you want to give them a full 15 minutes, and you really want to plan for that Q&A session. And you have to fit it within that time frame, because you cannot expect anybody to stay late. They have other commitments. They have to go. So you need to make sure that you're using 60 minutes and 60 minutes only, or whatever amount of time that they told you in advance. So you really need to build this into your workflow. You need to make sure that you're practicing so that you do not go over time and that you have enough time for that Q&A. All right, so the next thing you want to build into your preparation stage is something you're probably not expecting, but you should really plan on some professional development so that you can create effective and engaging slides. And a lot of people think that this is completely unnecessary and don't plan for this, and it gets them in big trouble. I have a question for you. Does your grad program include formal training on effective slide-based communication? I'm talking like a formal course. I'm not talking your professor hands you a tips and tricks and hacks sheet and, just kind of gives you like 30 minutes of tips on effective presenting. Yeah, that is not training. And so I'm curious, because when I poll my workshop training audience or my webinar training audience, 99% of people say that they have not received this level of formal training in their grad program, which means that pretty much no one out there, no academic, is getting training on effective presentation skills, which is why death by PowerPoint is so common. Like, that's why it's such a common problem. But there's a reason that I'm bringing professional development up now, because here's the reality. This is just how people work. Chances are incredibly high that most people on that search committee present in death by PowerPoint ways. And I don't blame them. I am not making fun of anybody here. This is just the reality. And the bad news for you is that that still doesn't mean that they're going to go easy on you just because they can relate and they do the same thing. They're actually going to judge you very harshly for the exact same thing that they do. And that's because everybody hates death by PowerPoint presentations. Everybody. So these feelings are going to come into play when they're watching your talk if it's a death by PowerPoint style. Whether they know it or not, whether they acknowledge it or not, that's what's going to happen. This is something that few people are probably going to be willing to admit to you, but that's why I'm here. I'm sharing this secret with you. And if you're in STEM, you might be tempted to think that STEM researchers are somehow different and somehow less biased. Don't make that mistake. Okay, this is why it's important to build in professional development time. Here is a fascinating study about job talks and teaching demos. I promise this is going to be really interesting stuff. And I'm going to put the reference to this study in the description. So Boyson and colleagues said, or quoted another researcher and said, surveys indicate that research talks are among the most important factors in deciding who search committees hire, especially in doctoral programs. I think they're citing Demare and colleagues. But again, I'm going to put that reference below. But yeah, this is a really interesting study, and I do recommend that you check it out, but I'm going to share the highlights. So basically, they surveyed 303 faculty in psychology in a range of universities, from teaching to research universities, and they gave them a list of 13 or 15 things or attributes, things like using good visuals, having good speaking skills, interacting with the audience, showing the data, that kind of thing. Okay. And then for each one of those things, they asked them to rate how important that thing was for a successful job talk. And then they did it again for teaching demos. And again, that list of things they asked about included things like interacting with the audience, quality of visual aids, using technology, public speaking skills, and providing detailed statistics. The list was a little different for job talks versus teaching demos, but they all basically hit on the core categories: engagement, technology, showing all the facts, design, and public speaking skills. So what do you think was most important for teaching demos and for job talks? You don't have to comment, but I do want you to take a quick second and I want you to guess. I really want you to think about what you think faculty said was the most important for a successful research talk and teaching demo. I'll share some of those highlights with you. So again, here's their scale. It goes from 1 to 6. And for reference, 1 was not at all important, 3 was somewhat important, and then 6 was of highest importance. And the fascinating thing is that for teaching demos, the lowest average across all factors was 3, and the highest was 5.57. Now for job talks, the lowest was 3.64 and the highest was 5.21. What does that mean? Well, it means the lowest average was somewhat important, which means everything was important. There's no big winner here. Just like Dr. Kelsky said, you need to be a master of this format, not a master of data viz, not a master of design, not a master of visuals, not a master of narratives, not a master of public speaking. You need to be a master of all of those things. Yikes, no pressure, right? And you still might be interested in which ones did the best. So here are the ones with a mean above 5. So for teaching demos, it was accurate content, duh, public speaking skills, interacting with the audience, and openness to questions. A lot of academics who come to me for help with their teaching demos have heard things like you should really use technology in your teaching demo. That's what they're really looking for most of all? Well, according to this survey, they did ask about that, and the average for using technology was 3.2. So again, somewhat important. And a traditional lecture style, which again, everyone's being told, don't do this, use technology, use other stuff instead. That was a 3. So they're actually about equal. Things like using visuals actually scored higher than using technology. Now, what about for research talks? What got an average of higher than 5? Well, one was openness to questions. Just like I was saying earlier, that Q&A session is really important. And so you need to make sure you leave enough time for that. But the other one was basic public speaking skills. And this is really fascinating because, again, whether or not the candidate provided detailed statistics was a factor on there, and so was quality of visual aids. And those were about equal. So again, I'm raising this because a lot of people think that they need to focus on their data for their research talks, right? It's a research talk. I need to focus on my data. I need to show that I can do these statistical analyses. I can share this data, all that kind of stuff, and I shouldn't worry about visuals as much. Well, based on this study, they are actually about equal. But really, the broader point that I want you to take away from all of this is that it was all important, and that trying to nitpick and say, I'm only going to do data viz, it's not really going to help you here because they are looking for an equally balanced, effective, and engaging presentation that is not death by PowerPoint. This is, of course, just one study. It's more nuanced, so I do recommend that you read it yourself, but it's just interesting that everything really was important. Now, you will probably be tempted at some point to crowdsource this type of information or your professional development. Maybe you'll be tempted to go onto Twitter and post a question about how to give an effective job talk and get hundreds of helpful academics who are truly trying to help you and give well-meaning advice about their job talks. And you know what? Some of it will be fabulous. You will get some great advice on there. But here's the problem. You're also going to get terrible advice. I keep an eye on these types of threads, and every single time I look at them, I see, yes, that's great advice. Excellent, do that. And then I also see, oh no, do not do that. It's the kiss of death for your presentation. You will have a death by PowerPoint presentation if you follow that advice. So Twitter is not professional development or any type of social media crowdsourcing because, again, for example, you're going to get bad advice like use as few slides as possible, be careful about your visuals, focus on your data. You're going to get advice like that, and it's not good advice. Because here's the thing, if you haven't had real professional development and your grad school does not include this type of training, how will you realistically know the difference between the good advice and the bad advice? A lot of the worst advice out there actually sounds smart and intuitive, and I have to untrain people on those horrible myths. Again, the big one is use as few slides as possible. That's terrible advice. So how do you get this professional development? Well, I have a course for you. It's called Stellar Slides in 5. It's totally free. The number 5 is because you basically get 5 really short videos delivered to your inbox once per day. And if you have a job talk somewhere in the future, like it's not less than 2 months away, then start here. This is perfect. Start building in that professional development slowly into your schedule. If you're in more of a rush, if your job talk is on your calendar and it's less than 2 months away, you're going to need a much faster and a different strategy. And that would probably involve taking one of my online courses, which teaches you everything. Just like we learned about in that survey about how everything is important, I teach you that in my online course. Or if you're in a really tight spot and it's really urgent, I can always design your job talk slides for you. It's probably the most common slide design project I do is job talks. But moving on, we'll talk more about that later. Are you still with me? Got a nice bright slide here to wake you up just in case you needed it. But yeah, if you're still here, that's awesome. Give this video a like and maybe even pause and get yourself a treat because yeah, that was kind of a lot of information. And it's time to move on and talk about your actual slides. So the first thing is you have to tailor your job talk or teaching demo to the description description to the department, the instructions you were given, secret advice from someone on the inside if you're lucky enough to have it. Okay. So don't come in with a generic job talk that you're going to use in all settings. You want to tailor it to that audience. And one thing to keep in mind is that if you do have someone kind of on the inside, or you have insight on that department, then trust that. So yeah, in that study, I talked about how for your teaching demo, that using technology was about equal to using the traditional lecture method. But if you know, or if you have someone on the inside telling you they really want to see you use that technology, listen to that advice. Okay, up next, I'm going to ask you something that you're probably going to think is weird. Okay, but I really want you to think about the answer. What's the purpose of a job talk? What should you be demonstrating? Okay, don't say get a job, because yes, obviously, obviously that is the goal. I mean more along the lines of, what is the search committee looking to see? What are you being judged on? What are you demonstrating to them through your job talk? Pause the video if you need a moment. Now, you might think, again, I'm being very weird for asking this, which, that's fair. But just about every single academic I've worked with gets this answer wrong. So, did you think something along the lines of, to demonstrate my competence as a researcher? Well, that is actually not the main purpose of a job talk, because they already know you're competent. That is why you got the campus visit. So here's another quote. This is from Dr. Rick Rice from Tomorrow's Professor. He said, "The job talk is not another defense of your work. You don't have to prove your competence. Instead, consider it a demonstration of your ability to contribute and collaborate as a potential colleague and as a clear communicator." That's what your audience is most interested in knowing. This is why everything matters in a job talk and a teaching demo. Engaging your audience, using design, using visuals, presentation design basics, public speaking skills, excellent data visualizations. All that is important, because that is what makes you a clear communicator. And that's what you need to demonstrate in your job talk or teaching demo. They already know you are a competent researcher or teacher. That's why you got the campus invite. Now they need proof that you know how to communicate your work in effective, easy to follow, and engaging ways. Even if they don't know how to do it, you'll be expected to do it during your job talk. So, quick check-in. I'd really love to hear your reaction to that. Is that surprising, or is that shocking? Or if you already knew that, how did you know that? Because I find that a lot of people are surprised by this. Okay, so how do you do that? How do you show that you are a clear communicator? The first thing you need to do is to make sure that your job talk and teaching demo has a well-organized narrative. So in my course, I refer to this as a storyboard. Some people talk about this as storytelling. Whatever you call it, it's just about making sure that your presentation isn't just a list of fact after fact after fact, that there is some type of structure to it, and that it is easy to follow, and everybody always knows sort of where they are in your job talk and why you're sharing certain information. 99% of the academics that come for help with their job talk slides, they're making this mistake. Their slides are confusing, they're hard to follow, and it's just fact after fact after fact, or slide after slide after slide, without any type of cohesion or structure. So make sure that your job talk and teaching demo has that. Another huge mistake I see, wow, a lot of academics like to talk about other people and promote other people or other institutions in their job talks. There is a lot of time dedicated to talking about mentors or students or other researchers in a job talk. And it may be hard, but you probably need to do that less than you're doing, or less than you're planning on doing. Just remember, this is about you. You are the one who is up for consideration, not your mentor, not your students, not your institution. This is about you and your ability to be a colleague and clear communicator. And women, I'm mostly talking to you because the men that I work with don't really seem to struggle with this or don't really do this. But when I work with women, it's a lot of time is dedicated to thanking others, which you can do. I'm not saying don't do it at all. It's just the amount of time spent doing it will probably need to be cut down for your job talk. Okay, so a super common question that I get is whether people should use jokes and memes and GIFs and that kind of thing. So in full disclosure, I love using GIFs in a presentation. If you take that free course, Stellar Slides in 5, you're going to see a lot of GIFs in there. But are they appropriate for job talks? No. No, they are not. And in general, you need to be really careful about using humor in your research talk. Show your sense of humor during other events for your campus visit. So be careful about using it in your job talk. But most people know that. So the thing that I actually have to tell people to get rid of for their job talks are things that are really, I don't really know how to phrase this, but kind of like touchy-feely personal stuff, like cheesy and sappy, like how much your passion is fulfilled by doing your research and how you truly just want to help humankind, no. Don't try to make anybody feel strong, sappy emotions. I'm always like, no, you have to delete this. So to sum it up, it's super risky for your research talk to have jokes, puns, memes, GIFs, or touchy-feely, sappy stuff. And I'm not making fun of you for doing this. I am all for taking risks and using those things. I have a flying unicorn in my earlier videos. I love GIFs. I love memes. So it's just for this context, for your research talks, I really recommend that you don't take that type of risk. Do what you want. It's your talk. But if you work with me, I will gently tell you we should probably delete those things. But for teaching demos, I think that there's a little more flexibility there. If you're worried about it, don't do it. Don't force yourself to use them. But if you're struggling with your teaching demo because you feel like you can't be yourself and you can't be engaging, and you want to use GIFs and humor and memes and that kind of thing, then you might be okay. This is very case by case. And it's just, here, the audience is your students. And that's why I think there's some flexibility for your job talks, especially if it will help you interact and engage with your audience more. So that one, I'm not going to say no, and I'm not going to say yes. It's case by case. Okay, the next piece of advice is that your slide design game needs to be on point. It is crucial that you do not bore, confuse, or overwhelm your audience with your slides. And again, because most people haven't taken training, that's exactly what they do when they make presentation graphs that are like this. They're full of junk. It's just the default settings. These are impossible to read. Visuals that are cliched, outdated, kind of weird, and formatted in all the wrong ways. Walls of text that overwhelm the audience and instantly leave you no choice but to read your wall of text to them, something literally everybody hates. Using built-in templates that just add random designs to your slides, or using things like smart art and design ideas. If any of these resemble your slides even a little bit, then I am sorry to keep bringing this up, but you really need some training because these type of slides are going to set you up to fail. These are death by PowerPoint examples, and you can't clearly communicate with slides like that. So that might be a little painful to hear, but don't close out. Keep watching. Again, I have resources to help you make better slides. One question people ask is, should they use PowerPoint for their job talk or teaching demo, or should they do something really fancy like Prezi? The answer is use PowerPoint. Don't jump to Prezi. Don't jump to something else. That's not really the solution to engaging presentations. I have an entire video about that, of course. I also have another video about 3 features in PowerPoint that are super awesome and you should use to create your job talk or teaching demo slides. Not everything in PowerPoint is great though, so I do have another video about the 5 features in PowerPoint that you should not use. You need to avoid those so you can avoid death by PowerPoint. And just as sort of a spoiler, things like built-in templates and smart art made the list, so you don't want to use them. So see, I have a lot of great videos to help you. You are not alone in this. I am here to support you and help you make a better job talk. Wow, what a perfect time to mention that if you haven't subscribed yet, maybe now would be a good time to do so. Wink, wink. Oh, and I have that free course, Stellar Slides in 5. So there are resources that I have for you right now to help you make better slides. I have your back. I am here to support you. You are not alone. All right, hit that like button if you are still here. And if you are, that is amazing. And you should give yourself a huge reward for continuing to watch this video. So now we can talk about the last part, which is the actual presentation and making sure that when you're there, you deliver an effective job talk or teaching demo. Okay, so I kind of mentioned this in the beginning, but you cannot go over time. You cannot go under time. You have to be perfectly balanced with your time to make sure you have enough Q&A time. So you're going to have to practice your presentation until you know you're not going to mess that up. Again, you want to leave about 10 to 15 minutes for the Q&A. I think 15 minutes is a little better than 10, but do whatever you were told. Speaking of the Q&A, I know the Q&A period is really intimidating and you'll be tempted to minimize the amount of time for the Q&A. Maybe you'll say, I'm going to leave only 10 minutes so the Q&A period isn't too long. But it's really important to do the Q&A period well, and that is why I recommend you lean towards more like 15 minutes for it so you can do a really good job at this. And I know that you will. You've got this. But yeah, let's be real. Sometimes people might ask confrontational questions and inappropriate questions or say statements that aren't a question. And you might be shocked by that and have sort of an initial moment of like, oh my God, did you just ask me that? But the good news, everyone else kind of knows when a question is sort of rude or inappropriate or not really a question. So you just need to make sure that you handle it with poise and grace and respect and professionalism, which you have learned how to do that in grad school. You really do have this. And hopefully you have some grad students or mentors who are willing to do mock job talks with you and who will throw these type of curveball questions to you. So you get practice with answering both the friendly and unfriendly type of questions. And they can coach you through how to respond. Maybe things like, that's a really good question. No, I did not do that in this study, but that's something to consider in the future. Even stuff like that. Another tip I have for you is to bring extra notes for yourself. I see a lot of people put extra slides at the end of their job talk. They call them supplemental slides usually, and that's a really good idea. Definitely do that. And then I think that just having it printed out is a good idea too, just in case, it's hard to go to those slides or things like that. So just have some notes and extra information printed, and I think you'll just feel more confident and like you have backup information for that Q&A session. All right, another tip is to, in terms of tech, plan for the worst and hope for the best. So when it comes to a job talk, you're going to want to think about some things while you're preparing your slides and while you're packing for the job talk. Think about what happens if the computer or the projector breaks. What happens if you can't use your laptop? What happens if they don't have a monitor for the presenter view so you can't see your notes in that view? What happens if their version of PowerPoint is different than yours? What happens if the internet isn't working? What happens if their projector or display is the wrong size? Now, I'm not trying to increase your blood pressure and give you tons of anxiety, I swear. But because let's be real, you're probably thinking these things already. So I'm really just trying to validate that thinking about these things is probably a good thing to do as long as you take that next step and you create a backup plan. So here are some ideas to help you create a backup plan so you're not worried about all that stuff. The main thing is bring your own laptop and have multiple cords and adapters. Have a VGA and an HDMI because some will only take one of those and not the other. It's just really hard to know. But if you bring your own laptop and insist that you use that, it's going to cover you for a lot of those potential problems. Another thing is have your file on a flash drive and easy to find. Again, assume there's going to be no internet when you get there. So don't have it just sitting there on Dropbox or in your email, because what if you can't download it or access it? So just have it on a flash drive and then you're good to go. It does not hurt to have a printed version of all of your notes for your presentation, even though they're in the PowerPoint file. Sometimes just having it on paper can be really helpful. Again, maybe you won't have a second monitor to look at presenter view. Then you'll have your notes printed out, no problem. And earlier I mentioned that I would talk about handouts again. Well, if you're really, really worried that something will go wrong with the projector and you can't even use your slides, which I don't think I've really heard of that, but we're just doing backup plans here. Well, one thing you could do is actually create a handout for your presentation and just bring one copy, because then you still can use that to go through your presentation, and they can make emergency copies and hand that out and it will replace your slides. Again, super rare, but it's just a backup plan that shouldn't take too much extra time. Another thing is, again, assume there's no internet. So when you're working on your slides, don't require internet for your content. I see people who will link to YouTube, and that is a big risk, like linking to a YouTube video, because what if there's no internet or it's just really slow? The Wi-Fi connection is just very unstable. You're going to get yourself in trouble. So when you make your slides, just assume you will not have any internet. And I do want to caution you that if you want to use a third-party polling app, maybe for your teaching demo to poll your students and that kind of thing, I often hear of that going wrong for whatever reason. The internet, the Wi-Fi is unstable, it can't connect, or just something goes wrong. So you might want to think twice about using something like that for your research talk or teaching demo. Okay. Here is something that you pretty much only need to worry about if you have to use their laptop or their computer. They're probably going to have a different version of PowerPoint than you. So when you're working on your slides, make sure you're looking up universal fonts and only using those. And if you're really worried, you can look up features that are only in PowerPoint 2016 or 2010 and only use those, because some animations, some transitions aren't on older versions of PowerPoint and you don't want to get in trouble with that. But again, if you can just use your own laptop, it kind of deals with this. Okay, the last thing that people do worry about sometimes is that they make their slides in widescreen, which they should be, you should be, but the projector is 4:3 or the screen is 4:3. So in most cases, unless the projector is from like 1970 or something, which I don't even think it would last that long, but most projectors will just adjust down. And if you've made really good slides, it won't matter that they're a little smaller because they'll still be easy to read. So this generally isn't really a problem. But again, as part of your backup plan, I do recommend that you learn how to change your laptop screen size, your display size, to something else. So your laptop is probably like a widescreen dimension, but you can actually go in and change that to some other dimension. So you can change your display to match whatever the projector and whatever the screen is. And it's easy. It is not hard. You just have to look up how to do it on your own computer. On a Windows, I think you don't even need to really download anything to do it, but on a Mac, I had to. But again, it's no big deal. So it's not about stressing out. It's just about having a good backup plan. You got this. There's a lot about this process that you can't control, but your job talk, your teaching demo, that is something you can control, and it's worth the effort. It matters. Just like Boyson and colleagues said, in an ultra competitive job market, giving a successful job talk is one way that applicants can maximize their chances of securing a position. And again, there is a lot about the process that you can't control, but how good your job talk or teaching demo is, you can control. So putting a lot of time and energy into learning how to do this well, none of that will be wasted time. And you can absolutely do this. Like, I believe in you. I am rooting for you. I know this was a long video and there is a blog post version so you can refer back to some of the key points. And it doesn't have to stop here. I mentioned in this video that there are a lot of other videos and even a free course that you can take so you can make sure that your job talk and teaching demo has everything in it, that it's effective and engaging and memorable for all the right reasons. And again, this is the perfect path for you to take. If your job talk is more than 2 months away, you have time to sort of watch all these videos, take that free course and all that stuff. If not, if your job talk is basically like right now, then honestly, a better option is to just take my quick online professional development course, because it shows you how to do everything, not just data viz, not just design. You learn how to do everything to have an awesome job talk and teaching demo. And once you're a member of my online course, you can actually book a one-on-one call with me. We can do private training. I can work on your slides while we do the call. That's only available to people in my paid online course though. And another option is I can just design your job talk or teaching demo slides for you. That's most of what I do for my slide design services. So, information about that is in the description below. Whatever you choose, just know, again, you aren't alone. I am here to support you. I am here to help you, and I want you to do an excellent job. Wow, thank you so much for staying for this extra long video. If you made it to the end, you are fabulous and you are on your way to making an awesome job talk and teaching demo. If this was helpful, please give it a like and share it with others who are in this process or about to be in this process. That actually really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell. Again, that really helps with the algorithm and is a great way to support my channel. And make sure that you comment below. I love your comments. I really want to hear what you think about this and if you have any other tips to share. So yeah, otherwise, thanks for helping me end Death by PowerPoint. Again, my name is Dr. Echo, and I'll see you next week. Bye.